Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK radio network.
We've got a situation where from time to time, and we've now all seen these 3 declassified videos of the Navy jets chasing these things. So you have a situation where from time to time military pilots chase these things in jets. Simultaneously, they are tracked on military radar system, and we don't know what they are.
This is Malcolm Robinson and you're listening to the Paranormal UK radio network, the UK's biggest paranormal network, and this is Paranormal Dimensions with David Young.
For me, this is the kind of show that I like doing most, where you basically just have a freewheeling discussion, have a chance to go off on topics. That's what's going to make you an outstanding player in the field. Just keep doing it.
Hello and welcome to another show. Thank you for joining me. And today we've got a fantastic guest. And also joining me today is the lovely Juliette Gregson once again. Hello, Juliette.
Hello, David. How are you?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you. And you paid me well to come on this show today.
I did.
So Nigel's one of your biggest fans, isn't he, Nigel?
Oh, he's such a sweetie. He's what I call the old brigade, you know, where you can...
Yeah, he's an actual veteran, isn't he? He's a veteran of ufology and the paranormal in itself.
We can learn a lot, and I think we will in tonight's show, to be honest.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I meant to say, thanks for the intro, Malcolm Robinson, and thank you for those kind words, Peter Robbins. I meant to say that at the beginning, and I forgot, but there you go. But anyway, yeah, so I think Nigel's waiting round the corner, so I suppose we better get him on and see how we go, eh?
Excellent.
Right, I'm looking forward to it, I know that.
Me too.
Hello, Nigel, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, David. Thank you for having me on your show. And hello, your co-presenter, Juliette. Hi, Juliette.
Absolutely over the moon to have you on. And, and as you've just said, Juliette is joining us.
Well, I thought I'd do that bit for you, you know.
Yeah. But, you knew that anyway, so that's good. Yeah. But, I think you know Juliette quite well. I don't know her at all. And
bigger correspondence on the old Facebook, I think, isn't it, Juliette, to be fair?
To be fair, at some point I will come and be annoying to Morecambe because I need to look at old churches and things. And most definitely. Oh,
my wife, who's with me here, says, "Have you got a passport?" Which probably isn't very fair on Morecambe, but never mind.
I'm not coming from Knott End. Come on.
Now, for our listeners around the world, Morecambe is actually in where is it?
Lancashire.
North Lancashire, is it? North Lancashire.
Yes, it's North Lancashire on the coast of Morecambe Bay, which overlooks the south of the Lake District.
Now, is that actually where Eric Morecambe came from, or was that?
Yes, it is indeed.
It is indeed.
That's where he got his stage name from. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
so it's not his real name then.
Oh, his real name was Eric Bartholomew.
I didn't know that.
He changed his name to his hometown of Morecambe. His house, his marriage house, literally overlooks my back end of my house. I can look at my bedroom window and see the house where he lived with his wife.
Oh, right.
Overlooks the sea. So it's a place of history, and I've actually done ghost hunting escort down at the Morecambe Theatre, and it's something to stand on the stage and think you're actually standing on a stage where people like Morecambe and Wise and Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, Laurel and Hardy, they're from that area, weren't they?
Stan Laurel
was.
Stan Laurel came from just across the water in South Lakelands, yeah.
So did you ever meet Eric Morecambe?
No, unfortunately not. I've met his wife and I've met his driver, but I've never actually met the man himself. It was quite sad, really.
Yeah.
One of my comic heroes from my youth.
Yeah, they were good in their day, weren't they?
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant timing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I grew up in that generation which we should have had more Monty Python. I was a Monty Python fanatic when I was a student, and that led to a lot of chaos in college. Oh dear. Yeah, well, we won't do that. I nearly got chucked out several times thanks to that.
Yeah, they were ahead of their time, weren't they? I think really the Monty Python group. Although they were kind of a spin-off of the Goons, weren't they? I suppose, really. But...
Oh well, yeah, they were the Goons of their generation.
Yeah.
Of our generation, my generation. Yeah, but Morecambe and Wise was an annual Christmas event. Everyone had to stay and watch the Morecambe and Wise Christmas show. You had to sit on telly and sit by the telly and watch that. That was part of Christmas.
I mean, the thing is, they still show them, don't they?
Oh God, and the humour's still good.
Yeah.
It's still good today. You can, I like about the guys like Tommy Cooper. I met Tommy Cooper, way back. And the guy could make you laugh just by walking in the room.
Yeah, just his face, wasn't it?
That's a sign of a good comedian. It's a guy who can just walk in a room and everyone's in hysterics.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to say a word. It doesn't have to be, dirty. It doesn't have to use crude jokes. You just stand there and everyone creases up.
Yeah, another one for me was Normal Wisdom.
Oh yeah.
He's
again, Normal Wisdom, Island Man. So he comes from this part of the world as well.
Yes.
He lived in the island. Yeah. So there you go. But I'm not northern by birth, as you can probably tell by my strange accent.
It's quite a Somerset accent, is it?
Well, I'm West Country. Yeah, I'm born in Somerset, but I've got a Dorset mum and a Devonshire dad. And that sort of leads into how I got into the paranormal in the first place.
Yes, I think we better go in that direction, otherwise...
Well, I just thought I'd need it. That.
That was well brought in there, Nigel. I like that.
Oh, thanks very much. Thanks, David. Yeah. No, I'm available for hire, rates, parties, wedding venues.
I was just saying before the show that Juliette paid me a handsome fee to get on this show today with you.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, because she says that she said that you're one of her biggest fans.
How much do I owe you for that one? Oh dear. No, it's strange, you come. Let's say I'm born in the West Country. All my family are West Country. I had my DNA done once for genetic testing for the family tree thing. Yeah. And it came at 98% West Country and 2% Irish and Scottish. It must have been a good night with a Celtic raid somewhere another way back. Basically, I'm West Country through and through. And the West Country is, it's a place I turned when I lived and worked down there, because I was a paranormal journalist. That's my background. I termed it the Paranormal Peninsula because, as you know, A, it's a peninsula, that's pretty obvious, but B, because it's immersed in the history of Celtic religion.
Absolutely.
It's also got smugglers. It's got farming and the traditions of pagan worship, of which I can tell you a few stories there. We've got the Orlands. We've got UFOs, we've got ghosts, we've got every type of paranormal and supernatural event.
Yeah, it's got a centre for witchcraft as well, isn't it?
Oh yeah, as ever. I mean, I did actually make a living basically specialising in the West Country for over 20 years. Because my parents brought me up with it. My father's family farmed on the edge of Dartmoor, and my great-grandfather was a warden of Dartmoor and a lay preacher. And he told my father all the stories of the Dartmoor, stories of the devil on horseback, and the black dogs of hell, the Yes Hounds, the West Hounds. And so I was brought up with that on one side, ever since I can remember, really. And my mother was broad Dorset, country Dorset girl, one of 13 kids, and she was brought up with a background of pagan worship. Not literally, but remnants of it left over. My grandfather would go into a field when it was a thunderstorm and watch lightning play around him, telling him it was lightning the corn. A metal hook in his hand, never got hit once. And then they'd leave back doors and front doors open when there was a thunderstorm to make sure the thunderbolt went right through the house. It was a crazy sort of mixture of, it's like corn dollies. and that sort of thing. It's a remnants of a pagan religion, a pagan faith. So, you know, that's how I got started. Ever since I was something to remember, really.
Yeah, because you used to write articles and things for magazines and all sorts of things, haven't you, over the years?
Oh, yeah. I mean, to be absolutely honest, the ufology came from the age of 8. Oh, God. Seemed a long time ago. Well, it was. I started out because we had a UFO experience when I was on a caravanning holiday near Plymouth. It was 1965. And my mum and dad were very early touring caravan enthusiasts. We were on a field campsite that night just outside Plymouth. And it was literally just a field. It had a set of pylons across the field and that was it. There was no toilet box, there was nothing. And terrific thunderstorm. I was in a bed in the front of the van with a curtain separating it, and then there was a double bed in the middle, made up. I woke up, this flash of lightning, and I could hear my mum and dad yakking excitedly, and I thought they were talking about the storm. And my mum was describing a craft she was seeing hovering over the field. And my father was a professional photographer. He was a press photographer. And he was groping to try and find his camera. They always kept loaded wherever he went. And I had this big twin lens reflex Minolta autocord, big old press camera. And yeah, he couldn't find it in time. He was trying to get his glasses on. My mother was describing how this thing was, she could see people in the windows alongside it.
Really?
She could see people.
Wow.
And she said, oh my God, it's tilting up. It's tilting. I can still hear my mum excitedly describing what she was looking out the window at. And it was hovering over these lines, and it said it had a pole dangling onto the line. And she said, yeah, it's hovering, and it's going up. It's going, and it was gone. Apparently it just shot up into the air. My dad was cursing the fact he couldn't get a photograph of this thing. But the funny thing was, David, that the next morning, I can't even remember going back to sleep. I woke up, breakfast time, and not a word was ever said.
Really?
From that day to...
Well, they never spoke about it.
Never spoken about it. And then my mother, God bless her soul, my dad passed away in 86. And in 97, I just joined a paranormal research group in Exeter. And part of that was they were having a lady giving a talk to a professional hypnotic regressionist. And she came down to talk about hypnotic regression and UFO cases. And I had a chat with her after, and she said, well, it sounds like you've got missing time. And I said, well, I don't know if it's just because I was a child, you know, and the storm had passed, and I just dozed back off to sleep. She goes, yeah, but nobody ever talked. I said, no, it was never even discussed over the breakfast table, nothing.
Strange.
Not in my earshot.
Yeah.
And my boss, well, not my boss, the leader of our group, John Downs, she said, well, I want a volunteer to be hypnotically regressed who's had an experience, and I turned out to be the only one who had. So, I was just starting into journalism. I thought, well, here's a good break for a freelance article. So I said, I'll tell you what, I'll volunteer. I had to go down to this lady's house next month to have the session. It was tape recorded. And to be honest with you, I didn't really think much of it. I'd heard about a thing called false memory syndrome, with hypnotic regression, where your mind, if you've read and seen enough about UFOs, could make up a very convincing story to itself. It's not deliberate hoaxing, it's a sort of a subconscious thing that your mind does.
Yeah, yeah.
And I thought, well, that's what's going to happen. I'm going to come out with some fantastic story, and it's going to be a load of cobblers if I can get hypnotised. And I wasn't really convinced about that. Next thing I know, I was out for the count, and I came to, and she said, my, that's an interesting story. I said, what interesting story? And she said, well, you and your parents were taken on board this craft. You were all medically examined.
Oh.
The guy, it was Nordics. And this chap had taken me and showed me a screen hanging in midair from nothing, you know, so like we would call a heliographic screen. And remember, this is 1965. And this guy was showing me something which I now know is a double helix for DNA. And he was explaining how we were being researched. They came from our future. And they were studying bowel cancer, and it runs in families. And now that was in 96, 97, and I'd had an operation for bowel cancer in 91. So I immediately thought, that's my mind playing tricks. So I didn't think any more of it. And then 2 weeks later I went for my annual checkup, and lo and behold, they brought an Australian doctor out. This is after my hypnotic regression. And he said, hello, I'm doing research into geneticism and bowel cancer, how it can run in families. And my father had died of bowel cancer, exact same place I had mine. Mm. So it's a bit eerie, because it was post-hypnotic regression session. Mm. So it could not have been suggestive thinking in my mind, because it happened after the event, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
did she actually record it all?
Yeah, the recording is still around somewhere or another. I can't tell you where. I lost my house and a whole lot of stuff got buried somewhere or another. But yeah, it's still around. But that, as I say, in the meantime, in between 65, I started collecting American UFO books. Like, in those days, English UFO books weren't exactly plentiful.
No, that's right.
There was a couple. I remember the first ones I bought were by a guy who I had the fortune to meet, Arthur Shuttlewood.
Yeah. And
a Ufo Experience. I was lucky enough in the very early 70s, I met Arthur Shuttlewood. He came down to give a lecture, and the guy was so generous with his time. A really nice chap, and helped me explain stuff that I've been looking for. I was doing astronomy, and I'd seen a few odd things, and I was explaining it to Mr. Shuttlewood, and Arthur was really taking quite a time to encourage me to look. He said, you've got to come up to Warminster sometime and have a look on Cradle Hill, which I eventually did in 76. But in the meantime, I was collecting American books. Have you ever remembered paper pulp fiction books from America? They used to be awful smelly things.
Yeah, I've got a few here, actually, some of the old American ones. So a couple of the old George Adamski and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I had a map up on my wall when I was like, by the time I was 10 or 11, I had a big US map, all the states now in it, and I was trying to even then pin out all these locations of towns I'd never heard of.
Yeah.
In, southwest Texas, and trying to find the thing, I'd have to use a magnifying glass to try to find it. And then putting these coloured little drawing pins, the sort of pins you put in posters with red and yellow tops.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out if there was patterns, because then I think I was got to thinking about there must be these aren't just random sightings. There's got to be something going on. And I carried on through the 70s. Grizzly Le Trench.
Yeah.
Peter Pageant.
Yeah. Oh, Peter.
Of course, Eric von Daniken. I know. Before you say anything else, Eric von Daniken.
No, I wasn't going to say anything. I've met Eric von Daniken a couple of times.
Yeah. I mean, I've only met him once. So when he wouldn't remember it because it was a book signing. But I tell you what I got from Eric Van Daniken and David, which I'm really forever grateful for. Up to then, like most youngsters, we believed what we were taught in school by history teachers. We accepted that was the history. And the one thing Eric Van Daniken did for me and for a lot of people in my generation, for which I shall be forever grateful, was he opened up our minds to the possibility of alternatives.
Yes.
That maybe history isn't what was taught.
Yeah.
Yeah,
to start asking questions. That's exactly right.
Yeah, absolutely right. He opened up the mind. He took the blinkers off, and I never looked back. And after that, I started getting into all sorts of. Do you remember there was an organisation called Contact International?
Yes, I do.
Back in
they did a little tour. I think I went to see one. I can't remember the name of the chap that used to run it, but I think he came to Southend sometime, and I went to one of those meetings.
Yeah, we wouldn't have come down to South West. I don't think anyone knew South Bristol existed in those days, but yeah. But I started, I went up to, as I say, I travelled up when I got a motorcycle in 76. I took me to Honda 200 and rode up to Warminster, rolled in one night, rode into the town pub and asked the landlord where Cradle Hill was, and you could hear the pin drop. And then the sniggering started, so he very kind chap told me where to go, and I rode up to Cradle Hill. There were some guys and girls there, and I got up and I actually did a night's sky watching at Cradle Hill with an old tin of Tim Flask of stewed tea.
They still do it, don't they?
They still do. And I saw a couple of interesting lights and out there. But it was the atmosphere, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The atmosphere of the place is just incredible. I'd say I sort of hopped around the 70s into the 80s. His UFO magazine started up with my dear late departed friend, Birdsall, Graham Birdsall.
Yeah.
And Birdsall gave me my first break into journalism, professionally, and I will be forever grateful to Graham. I was a complete beginner, a novice in the world. I gave up my taxiing job in '97. I was a taxi owner, and my wife, God bless her, we'd only just had a baby, and she said, well, look, this is obviously taking more and more of your interest. I was getting bored with my job. I was more interested in the paranormal and making a go of it. And she backed me to become a journalist. So I quit and I became a freelance journalist. A bit of a gamble, really.
Yeah, definitely.
A second-hand Apple Mac running on OS 3 and a 9-inch green screen, that I nicked from my brother-in-law who's a journalist. And, I sat there writing ridiculously awful articles, and I started writing a weekly column for my local paper.
Yeah.
We had a big UFO wave in '97 and the next one. I mean big. It was about 120 sightings in one summer. And we had UFOs, we had USOs, we had ghosts, and we had all sorts of things, crazy things going on. The editor was desperate for someone to write about it. He knew I was a bit of a UFO nerd, and he asked me if I'd like to write a piece. My brother was writing for the sports page anyway, so it became a bit of a family thing, didn't it? We all started going into the journalist side, and I hadn't written anything since college in '78, and it took me a week to do my first 1,200 word piece. I mean, it's quite hysterical looking back at it. But I don't know. I just went from there, and when UFO Mag came out, and I've collected since day one, and I wrote to Graham Birdsall and I sort of said, you know, I'd like to have a look at this piece, and he very kindly sort of read it and brought it back with a few red marking points on it to sort of say more, you know, like a headmaster, pay a bit more attention to this part, insert, resort. And then he said, phone me at the bottom, didn't he? And I gave him a ring, and it was like, hello, Nigel from Devon, a lovely Yorkshire accent he used to have, and he called me Nigel from Devon from that day on.
Yeah.
And eventually,
you took a step that a lot of people don't dare take. I mean, most of us will stop at that point where we're buying books, reading books, but we don't take that any further. I mean, I had I had scrapbooks and things where I used to collect things, but that's as far as I took it back then. But you went that one step further and actually stepped out of your job and went into writing about it yourself, which was quite a brave thing to do.
Well, I got lucky, David. I got very, very lucky. I'm going to mention a guy here who's known within cryptozoology circles a lot. His name is John Downs, and he runs what's called the Centre for Fortean Zoology down in Devon. Poor John has recently lost his wife, so he's in mourning at the moment. But the guy, I owe him virtually everything I am today. If I am anything at all, I owe to him. Because I phoned into a radio show when I was still in the cabs, and I queried him when he was on one of his radio shows on WW, and I said, "You're wrong." And I beg to differ, young man, he said, with his sort of posh public school accent. And I said, "Well, you are?" He said, "Well, come up and argue with me then." So it was my own cab, so I said, "Right, I'm taking the afternoon off, I'll be there in 20 minutes. And pulled up outside the extra radio, went to the reception and said, "John Downs has asked me to come in and speak to him." So they very kindly escorted me into the studio, and I sat there opposite him, him and Graham that were running the show, and I said, "Well, this young man has dared to query my thinking on it." So he's, and that's how I got in, and then I joined the CFZ. I didn't know anything about cryptozoology, and I ended up being a full-time investigator with the CFZ, and I went out and did filming and that with him, and he bought me and he trained me into journalism. He trained me to photojournalism and television and radio work. He really did take me under his wing, and that takes a lot, to do that for nothing. And I will be forever grateful to the man. And I got lucky. I co-wrote a book with him in the end. Yeah,
it's still a very brave step to take, to actually walk out of your job. Because like I said, I mean, most of us don't take that step,
Well, thanks. I mean, I owe it to my wife, because Sue's been my rock, and I don't say that because she sat next to me with a cricket bat. No, seriously, she's been my tower of strength over this. When there's times when, if you're in this game, nothing goes right, and you can't write a decent article, no commissioning editor, and we went through that patch in the 90s when well, not late 90s, early 2000s, when there were 5 mainstream magazines of ufology. And then they went to 4, then they went to 3, then they went to 2, and I think UFO magazine was the only one left, English magazine left on the stand. And then, of course, Graham passed away suddenly, and that magazine went as well. And if you're a freelancer like me, the market was drying up, and I had a youngster by then, I had a young kid, and I thought, well, there's got to be some way of earning a living. So I went basically hawking anything and everything to any magazine I could think of. And I wrote for Caravan magazine, I wrote for Wayward magazine. You do what you have to do.
Yeah.
But at the back of it all was still the paranormal. The paranormal has been there all my life, and I don't mean...
You went round and sold my books.
I went round and sold... Yeah, I desktop published Sue's child books, about Magic Lollipop books. We sold about 3,500 of those local craft fairs, and we were all like printing those, double-side printing and everything, which I had to learn as I went along as well. Boy, did we make some mistakes. I don't know how many reams of paper we went through doing that. But in the end, Sue got invited to do lectures at talks at universities and that to English departments because people liked it.
I think we ought to, at that point, we ought to introduce Sue, who's sitting behind you there, or at the side of you there. That's your lovely wife, and she's sitting there. So, hello, Sue. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you.
That's all right. Well, I thought we ought to mention you as well, since you're there. Because you've just celebrated your wedding anniversary as well, I understand.
May?
In May, yeah.
Yeah, well, it was a little while back, yeah, but it wasn't that long ago, was it?
Yeah. No. He still owes me a trip to Spain.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, nobody's been able to go anywhere, have they?
No, we had a real bad row when we were going out together, and I said, that's it, I don't want to know you, go.
Back in the 70s,
yeah. His mum and dad used to go to Spain every winter.
Yeah.
And his mum wanted to take me, and of course, obviously I didn't go. And I keep telling him he still owes me it. But it's an interesting life with him and with Nigel. I never know what next is coming up, basically. You know, I can wake up at 2 in the morning and he's outside with his telescope and his cameras. He doesn't take me because I went out once and my daughter was home from uni and we sat there doing E.T. Go Home. No, he doesn't take me out there very often.
Well, my youngest daughter, Beth, as Juliette knows, I don't know if you know Dave, but my youngest daughter just graduated from Roehampton Uni.
Yeah.
And she's come out, she's got a first class honours in photography.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
So, so my father would be extremely pleased to think there's another professional photographer.
Yeah. Well, congratulations to Beth. That's well done.
Yeah, she's going to do her MA now. She's going to do it in fine art.
I'm good at taking photos of feet. That's very good.
She cuts off heads. We are a bit of a Laurel and Hardy into ourselves, I think, Sue and I, but we work well. We seem to bounce off each other. And, it helps if you've got a decent partner in this game. You've got to have an understanding partner.
There's a place in Devon called Woodbury Common.
Not that tale, dear. It's a family show.
Well, yeah.
It's all right.
I
can always shop it out.
Oh, God.
And I used to go up with him, and I used to fall asleep because I couldn't see what he was looking at.
Well, David, you know what I was saying to you the other day when we were having a chat about areas of high strangeness?
Yes.
That phrase that Hynek, the late Dr. J. Hynek made. Areas of high strangeness. Well, Woodbury Common is one of those. It is a smallish site of scientific interest. It's high up. It's gravel beds with fir trees. It's a very strange area. It's got a very perfectly preserved Iron Age fort. It's got 40-odd tumuli, none of which are inhabited. They were all built but left empty. And it's owned privately by Clinton Estates, but the main road's going across it. And I went up there because there was a lot of UFO activity. But there's also been a lot of black cats, of which I've seen one, up close and personal. There's ghosts. There are witchcrafts. There's at least 2 active covens there. one for black arts and a more pagan one for the other. There are disappearances, there are murders, there are suicides. It's a very much a similar sort of...
Murders?
Oh, yeah. Oh, it wasn't me.
I don't really...
these areas, Holton, Dartmoor, Exmoor, Bodmin Cannock Chase, Rendlesham Forest. A lot of people don't realise that Rendlesham Forest isn't just known for the USAF base there, the famous Rendlesham UFOs. It is indeed an area of high strangeness itself.
It certainly is, yeah.
All the ingredients of it. And of course, I was going to say Baba. I can't remember the name of it now. You see, I should have rehearsed for this, shouldn't I?
Why?
The dearest Scottish.
Do any of those places you're mentioning, do any of them are there ley lines and things around?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, you could talk ley lines. I don't know what your feelings are on ley lines, David.
Well, I do know that Rendlesham Forest does actually line up with quite a few things that are over in the West Country, doesn't it?
It certainly does, and of course we've got Glastonbury Tour, which and we've got Glastonbury Tour lies on a couple of 3 ley lines as well. Now, Glastonbury Tour, personally, I shall very briefly dip in and out because I don't want to talk about my illnesses too much. But I had cancer, and I got about a year and a half after my cancer. I wasn't getting much better. The cancer had been taken away, but I still wasn't recovering my health too well. And something one day told me to get in my car and drive to Glastonbury. Don't ask me why. I wasn't even particularly thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about it much at all. I'm barely able to walk to my car, and I thought I'm going mad because it's about a 70-mile drive. I went to Glastonbury, parked up at the base of it. It was a rainy old day, and I thought, what the heck am I doing here? Now, I'd only just relearned to walk properly. I had over 1,000 stitches in my front, so you can imagine.
1,000, wow.
But I managed to get to the top of the side, and that was the outside, not the inside. I went to the top, and I sat there for about a couple of hours, sheltering from what I could from the rain. And do you know what? I sprited down like a 2-year-old. And I came back, and I swear to God that place did something for me, health-wise. I'm not a great believer in that sort of thing, but I can only speak from experience. From that day on, I gained weight, my appetite came back, my exercising improved, and I was like a new pin, almost.
Maybe you were drawn over there. Maybe
I think so. And that sounds crazy, doesn't it? And I've always tried to be a sceptical journalist. Well, not sceptical, but more on the side of scepticism, you know?
Well, you've got to start off in that
direction. Yeah, you definitely have. If you're any sort of journalist, you can't go in. You've got a degree of open-mindedness, but you've got to sort of also think, well, prove it to me.
Yeah.
And that proved to me that something happened personally to my body that I couldn't explain. And I mentioned it to my doctor, and he said, well, it's psychological. Okay. I said, well, fair enough. If it's psychological, it did the trick.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the answer to everything, isn't it, from a doctor's point of view?
Yeah, exactly. And I've got a new project in mind which I'm trying to get off the ground now. I can't really say too much, but I'm hoping to combine conventional science and paranormal enthusiasts into one investigation. I want to bring together the two halves of our subject, the two immovable stones. I want to bring them together and see if we can combine investigative talents.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your new website that you started up. We can go into it if you want to as we go along.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to use your show as a free advertising space.
This is one that, to be honest, Nigel, I'll tell everyone out there now, we did have 2 attempts to do a show late last year, didn't we? But
we did.
I had to cancel one because I went down with I called it a flu, but it was like a very bad cold. And then I said to you, I said, I'm okay now. And then Nigel went down with your illness. Well, so we had 2 attempts. Well, so this is our 3rd attempt at getting this show out. So.
And I ought to apologise to your listeners if I appear to be ranting on. Because my wife once says that I talk far too much, but that comes through being a journalist.
Well, I'll tell you what, there is one good thing. At least you're stopping Juliette from taking over.
Oh, I'm sorry, Juliette. How gallant of me. I do apologise.
You cheeky monkey. I'm just enjoying listening.
Yeah, I know you are. I'm only joking, Juliette.
listen to it every night.
It's a good job. It's a good job we're not all in the same room anyway, isn't it? Otherwise, I'd have probably got a black eye.
No, you'd be.
I think if you can inject him, but our subject is supposedly so serious, isn't it, Dave? When we get ridiculed so much. I've had 55 years of being laughed at and ridiculed, and everything you suggest, you're going to find ridicule wherever you go, whatever you write in, if it be mainstream or a little publications. I've written for both. Yeah. And whatever suggestions you make, you might think it's sensible. It's not too left wing. You think I'm not left field, rather. I'm not gonna put anything too far out, because if it's out there, people are just going to ridicule it. It's not going to be listened to. And I've tried to play things midstream. Yeah. And if I have a new idea, I've tried to make it science-based, or my idea of science-based. I'm not a scientist, but at least I make it on principles that are known, Yeah. And it still gets ridiculed.
It's like one of those things. I mean, when we experience something, we become experiencers. So we're not actually just making something up from something we've read. So you just actually become a knower rather than a believer sort of thing, don't you?
Well, I had a vicar once who knew me when I was a young man growing up, and he said, Nigel, he used to cross the road and cross himself when he used to come near me. He used to say, you are a psychic dustbin. I said, well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
He
told me not to go near Nigel.
He said I was a negative.
Really?
I drew in negative energy. Yeah. He was really serious about it. He said, you wonder why everything you seem to touch or everywhere you go seems to have a paranormal aspect. He said, it's because you attract it. I said, well, I certainly don't mean to. Sometimes if you're on your own in a room or a house late at night on your own, it can be damn scary.
I mean, the thing is,
that's a West Country.
What is negative about the paranormal? I mean, the paranormal is the paranormal. Isn't the church they talk about paranormal beings anyway, spiritual beings, and they're paranormal as well.
Yeah. Well, but I tried to have a debate with him once about the Bible and UFOs, and I said, well, take that fiery chariot that Ikazel saw in the sky. I was brought up Church of England. I was the next choir boy, so I'm baptized, confirmed into it. And I used to say, my mother used to read me the Bible, for heaven's sake. So and I say, Ikazel saw a flying chariot in the sky, flying chariot wheel. And I said, you couldn't conceive that might be a UFO? No. So I said, in other words, you're willing to take a 17th century translation of the original Bible as gospel truth. I mean, the 17th century weren't well known for their scientific knowledge. No. Not really.
No. Yeah, it was wheels within wheels and four faces, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got the 50,000-year-old Indian text, of which the name I can never remember, which describes an atomic. Thank you very much. I'm so glad that said Indian pronunciation, because I didn't want to insult any of our friends from there by attempting it myself.
I think that's how it's pronounced anyway. That's as near as I'll try and get to it anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, the actual thing itself was fascinating, because it describes flying craft powered by Mercury.
Yeah, way before the Bible, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's 50,000 years old. I mean, that is, it's crazy. I mean, this aspect, again, you see, there is a common denominator. All paranormal guys and girls who've been in it for years want to find a common denominator of all paranormal and supernatural stuff. Yeah. They always said there is a common cause. I believe that. I thoroughly believe that all paranormal and supernatural events are caused by one thing.
Yeah, they've all got a link.
And that is electromagnetic and geomagnetic force. That's the common link.
They got connected.
Mediums. Well, my wife's saying about mediumship, because I married for a guy who's in paranormal, I'm very lucky. I married Sue, who's a natural medium. She's clairaudient and clairvoyant. Oh, right. Clairvoyant and clairaudient. She's seen and speaks to them. She's done it since she was a kid. Right. No one ever trained her. She doesn't practice the art. She doesn't do demonstrations or anything like that. She's just something
I don't like history.
Yeah?
I don't like history.
You hate history, hates buildings. She's the ideal person to take on an investigation. Because if I go to a building, I'll take this with me, because she won't let have read a word on it. She will not know what the place is like. I will never tell her any of the history. And I take her in, I suppose, as a test piece, what am I looking for? A common denominator. I'll take her and say, what do you think of this place then? Knowing I know what I know, she'll say, do you want to ask me anything? And then you'll come out and you'll say, oh, crikey, yeah. We went to a little church near Oakhampton, a place called Staunton. It's on Dartmoor. It's where my family farmed. They farmed there for 600 odd years. And my great-grandfather was buried right outside the front door, and I'd never been to the grave, so I thought I'd go there. And was talking to him. We walked inside, and there were two old ladies in the church. I got talking about my family, because I love history. So I was talking about the family history. My wife was looking at this empty altar, nowhere else in church. And then she said to these two old ladies, who's that lady vicar with those rounded glasses? So she's staring at us. And these two women looked absolutely fearful. I thought they were going to have a heart attack. She said, there's no one there. You're on about whatever. I can't remember the surname. And she said, she's been dead for 40 years. Oh, my God. My mother said, well, she stood there smiling at us now. This way Sue is. She just takes us. I mean, she'll tell you. They look to you like normal people.
They are.
Yeah. Well, of course they are, yeah.
They don't hurt us. Well, they don't hurt me. I don't know if they hurt anyone else.
Well, you can duck if you see it coming. We can't.
Well, yeah.
I mean, do you think there are such? Do you think there are such things as evil spirits as well, though?
Oh, I do. Yes. Personally, I've come across them myself. I've been hurt by a spirit, Dave. I've been really bad hurt by a spirit, physically attacked by one, and that was in the Winter Gardens up here. And I was doing escort work for ghost tours, and you don't get paid; it's a voluntary thing. And we were down underneath the stage one night. Now the Winter Gardens, I don't know if you know the history of the Winter Gardens Theatre in Morecambe. Juliette probably does. You know about the history of the place?
I do. I'm just listening and learning.
Well,
thank you for getting a word into
it. It was originally a swimming bath before it was a theatre.
Yeah.
And before that, it was a hostel for orphan children.
Oh, was it? I didn't know that.
And the chap who was running it in the 18th century, and the chap who ran it was a bit of a so-and-so. He used to kill children and that. He was known for it, and they used to disappear.
Yeah.
And if you go down into the basement of the theatre, right down the very bottom, it was, in those days, it was before it was restored like it is today. It's restored beautifully, but then it wasn't. It was just all stripped bare brickwork. And you go down in there, and there was hardly any light, and it was damp, there was water there, and there was still the tile work from the old swimming pool. And go into the big storeroom to the main stage, and like a fool, they left, and this ghost had been playing up, they've been throwing bowling balls and that around, and I lost my cool a bit with them, and my West Country temper was up, and I don't like ladies being abused like that, and I'm a bit protective when it comes to the fairer sex, and so I said, you know, if you're going to be a devil, come out and face me. And this professional medium who was there, he said, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because we've got a lot of them around here tonight. And I said, I don't give a damn who they are, basically. You don't scare women like that. I said, if you want to face up to a bride, come on then. Try me. So I said, I tell you what, leave me here. I'm going to face this out on my own. This is like 2 o'clock in the morning. What an idiot, eh? And so I sat there on a seat, and I had a torch. All the lights was out, and it's a bit eerie at 2 o'clock in the morning with the winter winds blowing around and the old safety curtain going bang, 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 and you ever felt anyone coming around you in the dark? You can't see anything, you can't see a hand in front of your face, but you can feel, and I heard the footsteps walking around and around me. So I thought, alright, then I said, you've had your thrill, you're trying to put the wind up me and I ain't moving. So it's either going to be you or me, or one of us is going to have to leave, and I'm not leaving, so you're going to have to leave. I thought, I'll do a bit of the old Carl Beatty wind 'em up routine, you know, which is not a good idea. I've broke my own rule there. And so with that, I had a tremendous kick in my leg that really hurt, and my shin, and I hopped around a bit. I hobbled back down to the other end of it, rolled up the treasure team thing in front of the guests there, the boss said, well, let's have a look and see what's gone on. How did he hit it? And there was a lovely imprint of a boot with hobnails right across my shin.
Wow.
You could count the hobnails on it and this thing. And I had quite a bruise on my, for about a couple of 3 weeks on my leg. So that was the one time I got attacked by a poltergeist or a ghost, call it what you will. Because rule number 1, don't wind people up.
Yeah, I should say no to that.
Then the medium said, well, you were lucky. He told me the following week, he said you were lucky. He said, he said you were lucky, you had 12 of them down there, they were all the witches of Pendle. I went, what? He said, well, we had all the witches of Pendle were there, including the old Mary, the old leader of them. He said, they were going to wind you up good and proper. I said, they didn't need to, I think the caretaker got me beforehand. So yeah, they're good fun, ghosts. And yes, they can hurt you. I got possessed there as well, but that's another story. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it. It's fun.
So he could, so before you actually, so I'm just trying to work out that, so he could actually sense them before you got, before you were attacked sort of thing. That's, that's quite amazing to me.
I can sense my mother and my sister. It runs on the female side of my family. My grandmother, my mother's mother in Dorset was Jewish, whole Jew, pure Jew, and she practiced the Jewish art of medicine.
Right.
But she also used to. My mother used to call her a witch. That was her own daughter. She said she was a witch because she used to go and gather all the herbs and go out to the hedgerows, and she cursed people and everything else. And so it went down through her. Then my mother had the gift of sensing. She could sense things. My sister is a full-blown medium. My daughter, Bethany, my youngest now, she walks into a room, doesn't she? And she can see it as it was 500 years ago.
Wow.
And she said it's like stripping off layers of the room. To her, you can see as it was with the Tudor planning, shall we say, then with the Georgian, then Victorian wallpaper, and finally as it is. She's actually ghosts, but she says the buildings as they were, which is a fascinating gift. I just sense people. Of course, she's got the full-blown mediumship, which I think her daughter gets it from.
Yeah.
So it seems to be on the side more than the male.
So how sensitive are you?
Can
you pick up stuff as well yourself?
I can sense presence. I can sense when a building is wrong, and I can sense where something happened.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as it goes.
Right.
Thank God, and I say this as a paranormal coward. I say, thank goodness I can't see them or treat them. I mean, it'd be great, wouldn't it, to be a journalist and a paranormal investigator and have the ability. I sort of envy it in a way, but not in another, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, certainly.
Walking down dark lanes and that at night don't worry me, because where I lived in Devon we had 10-foot hedgerows, and 5 o'clock at night when it was dark in winter I used to walk 4 miles back home from school. You know, in those days you could do it, and didn't have to worry about evil so-and-so's around in the world then,
yeah.
You know. And I walked miles and miles in country hedgerows to go out early in the morning picking mushrooms on our own and that. Real country boy.
I've just brought your book cover up called Chasing the Shadows, A Life Spent Searching for the Paranormal. So,
yeah.
And on that it's got like a picture of a man walking down like what looks like a tunnel. So, do you picture that as yourself?
Yeah, very much so. Walking into the unknown. That is, I don't know why it is, but 9/10 of paranormal stuff always happens in the dark, lonely places. Have you ever noticed that? It always seems or a dark hollow of a wood or a forest. The dark seems to be associated with our profession so much. Chasing the Shadows, well, I thought that described my name. I designed that cover myself, and it was a feeble attempt at first people attempt at designing covers. I used to do Sue's children's ones, so I thought I'd have a crack at my own. That was a first attempt at my autobiography. I'm rewriting that at the moment. I'm going to make that illustrating a lot bigger. Oh, yeah. And I want to do.
Is that one still available on Amazon? Is it?
It is, but it's not as good as it should have been. Right, to be fair,
so it's better to wait until you reissue it.
Wait, give it 12 months and see my reissue.
Right,
yeah,
okay.
Because there's got to be a sequel, which has got Found the Shadows. That's what I'm going to call a sequel.
Right, well, when you bring that out, you have to come back on, Nigel, as well.
Oh, thanks. Thank you very much.
You can come back as well, Juliette, as well, if you like.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course you can.
Am I allowed, David?
Yes, go on, Juliette, go on.
Are you sure?
Knock yourself out, Juliette.
Yeah. You are the co-presenter, so...
I know, but it's like you two are just drinking beer in a pub. It's like...
How did you know I was just drinking a swig of beer?
Yes.
Right, I don't even him with him when he goes talking paranormal. I just leave it.
I know. Right, Nigel, right. You were talking about being hypnotised. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would you do it again? Would you let me do it?
Oh.
Nothing personal, but probably not. And I'll tell you the reason for why. The reason for why, it left so many questions unanswered in my own head. That even today I think to myself, funny enough, I was only reading the notes about it. The lady sent me a whole load of copious notes as well as the tape. I was reading and rereading it and I'm thinking, I started seeing a lot more UFOs recently. Well, I've seen them all my life, but the last sort of couple of years, I've not consciously done this. I'm sort of easing off because I've semi-retired. And I don't write a lot nowadays. Not as much as I used to. But it's like something's drawing me to looking out the window at certain times of night. And 9 times out of 10, this light will be there. And it's like something is attracting me and I'm wondering, in the storyline it had, we will visit you from time to time for the rest of your life. And I'm thinking, God, why are they visiting me now? And it got me a bit spooked, to be honest. And if you're 2 o'clock in the morning, you look out of a window and there's this light sort of hovering there. Yeah. And I've taken photographs. I've done hundreds of these photographs.
You have. If you go to your Facebook, Nigel, then you can actually see a lot of your photographs, can't you?
Yeah, you see, David, then that's a bone of contention in itself. Because once I'm retired, money wasn't too clever because if you're on disability benefit, it's not brilliant in this world. And when you've got family to feed, we've all got bills. And so I was using my good trusty Samsung S5 Galaxy phone camera, which is nice. It's a 16 megapixel lens. It's a decent little camera for its time. But to get the full sort of effect, I ran it through Adobe Photoshop. Now, I've been using Photoshop for over 20 odd years now to examine and sort of investigate paranormal photographs of all types, pictozoological, ghosts and everything else. And I know about pixelation and distortion through overuse of the filters. It's rule 101 of Adobe. You never use the filters to their full extent because you're going to ruin the picture before you even start. But I still get it today. Oh, that's pixelation. Oh, you've overdone it. You've run the enhancement through another enhancement, or you put it through Lightroom. And I say, yes, I do. But at the same time, I don't go and just whack on the filters full because I know full well what it'll do to the picture. You can tell when the picture starts being pixelated. You can tell when the distortion starts, and you can just ease off on the filter, and the pixelation will ease off, and the filter, the distortion will ease off. So there is a degree of good work you can do with Adobe, but I've faced a lot of harassment over that, and fair enough. But now I've cured that. Now I've actually saved up my pennies and bought some decent gear. So we're going into. I've got a decent DSLR and I've got some good lenses, so I'm going to buy another DSLR pretty soon. I've got another infrared pair of binocular scopes with 4 times mag and 100% illumination at night. And really quite interesting because I want to take up infrared sky watching, which is looking for these UFOs you can only see under infrared binoculars, which I find fascinating because they fly in formation. They tend to do the usual sort of things that UFO do, sudden right angle turns, blah, 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 blah.
And they suddenly disappear as well. Do you see that a lot?
Yeah, I do. And I've seen the 2 really classic ones. I will very quickly run you through. There are 2 major UFOs I've seen here in Morecambe. I saw orange orbs, which you've always seen. We say Chinese Chinese lanterns, don't we? You know,
Well,
standard. It was a Chinese lantern. This thing came up at 45-degree angle, shot up through the cloud level and into the sky during a thunderstorm from the ground. And I thought, that's unusual. And I saw about 4 or 5 of them, didn't we, that day?
Yeah.
And then we went out, and I found out that where they were launching them from is a massive, great wartime hangar that was used during the war for rebuilding Lancaster bombers. And apparently now it's just used to store a ton or two of potatoes. But nobody seems to know who owns it, which is rather curious. And so I have all sorts of interesting thoughts going through my mind, but I won't say that. But Heysham has got a history of these lights. If you look in the local paper, and like I have been a nosy journalist too, it was being seen in the 90s.
Yeah.
Being seen in the 80s.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're talking about that orange colour. I mean, I don't know if you've heard, I actually saw an orange oval object in 1966 going across the Essex sky. It was a big oval and it was all different tones of orange. It wasn't just one tone of orange. It was all like different shades.
Can I ask how old you were then, Dave?
I was 16 then.
Yeah. Yeah, so really, you count like myself as either one of the first or second generation of British ufologists.
Yeah, well...
Because...
Well, no, I don't know about that, because I mean, the thing is, I never did anything about it. All I did was went home and told people about it the next day, and I got people taking the mick out of me, for that sort of thing.
No.
But
don't worry about it. In college in the 70s, I was known, I went to Exeter College to do business studies of all things. And, I used to go down, there were about 4 or 5 of us that were into UFOs and stuff. And Daniken was writing, and we were also getting into Ron Daniken discussing him. Yeah. We used to sit in the coffee bar, and they used to call us the Green Man Club. And they used to take them, make you come in there, and you sort of get inflatable green men thrown at you, because they used to sell them in Smiths, God. And they get the Mickey taking out some chronic out of us for it. But you get used to it in this game, don't you?
Yeah. Well, it's easy. It's easy to take the mick than actually do a bit of study and sort of find out about it, isn't it?
Well, I have to say, I've got one major thing. So I've got to say, well, I don't know how we're doing for time.
Yeah, we've got you. We carry on. We're fine.
One major thing I'd like to say. I started out ufology like most people did in the 60s. I was thinking that all UFOs are extraterrestrial. It was almost accepted they were beings from another world. Yeah. Over the years, I came to maybe change my mind a little bit and think that they were government projects, black military, blah, 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 blah.
I'm sure some are, yeah.
I'm sure some are. And we're talking about the 2% that are fully unexplained, okay? We'll knock out the 98% that you can account for. And out of that 2%, I think there are quite a proportion of not only UFOs, but all paranormal and supernatural events that are interdimensional in origin.
Yeah.
I've come to that conclusion most firmly that interdimensional travel accounts for so much. It accounts for having Bigfoot in England, which is far too small a nation to have a resident population of Bigfoot. And yet they're seen.
I was going to say, some will disagree with you.
Well, of course they will. That's the nub of our subject, isn't it? Yeah. We're always going to get disagreement till it's proven one way or the other. But free and polite discussion and disagreement. Yeah. That's the mother of all invention.
I mean, to be honest, this is what I've said about this show. That's why I called it Paranormal Dimensions, because I believe myself that a lot of things it's interdimensional, a lot of stuff we see.
Well, no, conventional science tells us now that our known universe is not just 1 or 4 dimensions, it's hundreds of dimensions. And if you can think of it as a bit of plyboard, plyboard's got so many layers glued together. Instead of having 4 or 5, 12 ply or whatever, you've got thousands of dimensions or hundreds of dimensions. And they're all travelling in the grain is all going in different ways. Yeah. Each dimension is different to the other. I mean, it's one heck of a navigation feat.
Oh, sure.
But but I still think that's possible. And I think ghosts are probably dimensional. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I'm going to hit a lot of opposition with that, but I think so. I actually wrote an article once for Paranormal Magazine, which just said, who are the ghosts, we or they? Are we ghosts to them, or are they ghosts to us? Are we looking into their dimension, or are they coming into ours?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, a different level of being. I think a lot of people would say, wouldn't they? That so we pass on, and our spirit then goes on to a different level of existence.
Yeah. What's it they say? It's just a door you pass through.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Yeah. You could go on with that. You could. The same could apply for certain black cats, not all, because I do believe there are flesh and blood big cats in Britain.
Yeah, the strange thing is, you mentioned
short.
about black cats. When you said about black cats have been seen in Rendlesham Forest as well. I mean, I've never seen one.
Yeah.
But I have heard of them having been seen, which is quite strange, really. And like you say, well, they could be popping in and out of portals or interdimensional stuff, couldn't they?
I don't say all of them, not by a long way. There are, I know on the moors, as there are in Norfolk, they're called shuck hounds. On my part of the world, they're called whist hounds, or hounds of hell. Conan Doyle voice is it's the Hounds of the Baskervilles on the storyline. He actually heard of it when he was staying on the edge of Exmoor. But there are stories of hounds, black hounds with fiery eyes, running alongside coaches in the 19th century on their hind legs and scaring the residents. They seep through history. And I think, those sort of beings definitely, well, some may say they're demonic. I don't. I tend to think they're interdimensional rather than demonic. I'm ready to be proven wrong. I hold an open mind on these things, but I think you've got to stand some theory in your head.
Yeah, sure.
And work from that. If you're wrong, it's wrong and move on. Yeah. And I think this is where conventional science comes to blows.
Yeah. Well, the unfortunate thing is nobody can really prove anything, can they? That's the trouble.
Well, yeah, we've all got theories. I mean, they have their applied mathematics and physics, and they'll say, well, that's impossible. That goes against the laws of physics. To which I said, well, yeah, but if you'd asked me 200 years ago if an aircraft could travel at the speed of sound, I would have told you ridiculous. Yeah. A train couldn't even go faster unless one, suffocated. If you were in an open carriage over 30 miles an hour, one would die of suffocation.
That's right.
That was actually expressed at a Royal Society lecture in London.
Yeah. Well, they thought you wouldn't be able to breathe. They thought you wouldn't be able to breathe in a car, didn't they, at 10 miles an hour? And things like that.
That's it. I mean, there is no such thing as the paranormal, just the normal that has yet to be explained. Yeah. I don't know who actually said that, but it's such a true saying. It really is a true saying, and it's up to people like you. Not so much for me now, because I'm out of the scene a lot, but people like yourself and all that, and Juliette, and the younger ones coming up through now.
Oh, it's nice of you to say that.
Thank you.
Push the boundaries.
Yeah.
Push the boundaries back, and encourage science to come. You've got parapsychology departments in a lot of major universities now in London, Birmingham, and encourage them to work with serious paranormal investigators and serious journalists, and together search for the answers. Because so far you've had two. You've had conventional science in the form of parapsychology going that way, and enthusiasts who are snubbed by them, and they snub science, and scientists snub science. And instead of fighting each other, combine and come together and seek the answers, because I'm sure we can find it.
That's right.
I'm sure we'll find it. I know the answers are out there somewhere. You know it. I know it. Everyone who's in the game knows that the answers are there. It's just we haven't quite found it yet. We're getting there.
I think we're
better and better tools.
I think we're edging towards that, aren't we? I mean, how do you feel about how do you feel about disclosure, Nigel? How do you feel we're going in that?
I thought today you were going to ask me two things that I was always asked at lectures. I used to say that when we were on the lecture circuit back in the late 90s, Julia, I have a very loose connection with Lapis, because in 1999 at the Lapis conference, I think it was about my third professional gig, and I had a night to remember with the speaker's night, but I have fond memories of Lapis as a man. But anyway,
I have fond memories of watching that video you sent me a link to. That was just brilliant.
Mr. Down, dear John, as I say, he's grieving at the moment for his wife, but dear John, he had, shall we say, he's a large gentleman. He weighs about 16 stone. He looks like a grizzly bear. He's got this really wild, sort of wild scientist look. Extremely well educated, very well educated, public school education, speaks fluent Chinese and Latin. and Mandarin Chinese, and a very, very good naturalist. He's superb at cryptozoology, but he does like a pint, or used to like a pint, and he used to sit on stage, 6'7" of him, size 15 shoes, and there, boy, I'm not going to get up and talk. You do get up and talking. I'm going to have my breakfast, in which he called for a 4-pint pack of Stella. He brought out, drinking it, and I'm talking and putting on stage. I mean, only John could get away with that. I mean, it just brought the house down. You know, people just sort of go, oh, good grief, you know, highly disgusted or very amused, you know. But John is one of these guys, he's a genius. Quite frankly, he's an underrated genius, and I think years to come people will rate his work a lot higher, because he's really opened up cryptozoology in England, or in fact around the world, from very humble roots, you know. Well, there you are. But,
yeah, I couldn't. There was a time when I couldn't see any connections with cryptozoology to anything supernatural. But I'm beginning to actually, over the last couple of years, the same as spirit and things, I couldn't see the connections with UFOs. But over the last few years, I'm beginning to sort of see there are connections, you know. And
there are connections there, and you've got to dig for them.
Yeah, and a lot of people I speak to, they seem to be going in that direction as well. Everyone seems to think that there's so many connections there, and we're not actually looking at extraterrestrial craft. Although I do believe they come here as well.
Well, in 1997, we had this UFO wave I was telling you about.
Yeah.
And one of the calls I got, because John was an extra and I was an extra on the coast, at 13 miles away. And I phoned up John. I said, "Yeah, John, we've got a very rare thing, zoologically speaking," because he likes maritime zoology as well. And I said, "I've had a whale wash ashore." He said, "Well, that's interesting, because you haven't had one for years. Do you know what type, what size?" I said, "Not yet." He said, "Well, get down and get a photograph." And I don't know if you've ever tried to photograph a dead whale, but it's got a stand-up wind. And it was still relatively fresh. Oh my God, it stank. And it was a blue whale. It was about 20 foot long. And as a ufologist, I was taking these photographs basically just to give to John, because I wasn't into marine geology at all. And then something interesting, I looked, and it had been cored out. And as a ufologist, my mind immediately went ding, cattle mutilation. I thought, it can't be right. And I said, it's got to be it's got to be some maritime thing, maritime creature of some sort. But it was about the size of a dinner plate, and our entire genitals had been poured out on this thing. Wow. Smooth-sided, being cut with a laser. And then I walked around, and the poor thing's bottom jaw was missing. And then I really started ringing alarm bells for me, and I thought, whoa. And I waited, and then as I was there, the English Heritage chap turned up. Now they're in charge of disposing of animal carcasses off the beach, whales and porpoises and dolphins. And I was talking to him, I said, "What caused that?" He said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, it's cut. I mean, everything's missing." He said, "It's not a boat strike. I can't explain it. Without an autopsy, I just don't know." So I said, "Well, why are you at it?" I said, "The bottom jaw's missing." He said, he said, "They're probably, souvenir hunters. They've come down and yanked it off and gone away with it." I said, "We're talking about a full-size blue whale here. This thing's lumpy, you know." I said, "They'd have to have a chainsaw." Yeah. And this is right underneath the marine firing range. I think they might have been noticed. Then they'd have to have yanked up a sheer sort of 20-foot ladder, steel ladder off this rocky cove, and then carried it across a busy caravan.
There'd be signs of it, wouldn't there?
There would. And I said, "This is ludicrous." He said, "Well, they're after their teeth. They're after the whale's teeth." Yeah. Okay. So I told John, I said, "This is happening right in the middle of a UFO wave." And when we were doing the research for the book, I found 10 years to the exact day beforehand, there'd been another UFO wave in 87, another one in 77, another one in 67, right back to 1907. There have been UFO waves over Exmouth and East Devon at that particular time. And in 1987, another whale got washed ashore exactly on Orcombe Point, a more rarer one this time, one called a Cobia speech whale, and it's not found anywhere really except the Pacific. And here it was in the North Atlantic. Not only that, they'd never get washed ashore. There's only one known skeleton known of a Cobia speech whale. They're extremely rare. This one had been mutilated. Its jaw had been gone. And at the time they said it had been extracted, it had been taken for its teeth. The only problem was it was a male. The male Cobias don't have teeth.
Oh.
And this thing had gone again. And I wrote up the thing, and I called the Sad Mutilated Whale. And I think it was a case of a mammal mutilation in the middle of a UFO wave. There were USOs seen around that area. There are a lot of USOs coming out of the sea and everything there that were witnessed by several people. And I think, this is all part of the UFO wave. So yeah, cryptozoology does have a part to play with, well, certainly ufology. Yeah. And I think with interdimensional phenomena as a whole. So, interesting.
Very interesting. And quite fascinating. I mean, I had no idea that there was sort of the sevens were into it, the 77, 87, 67, etc.
The first recorded sighting I found, you've heard no doubt of Nick Redfern.
Yeah. He's coming on the show in November.
Oh my goodness me, you must say hello to him. Yeah. Nick and I go back a long, long way, roommates, and I was doing research for this book, and I came across, in a local library next to us, and I came across records for a 1909 newspaper called the local one, called the Express Journal, and it was actual copies, and it wasn't on microfiche, it was actual copies, newspaper copies. And on the front page, in those days, it used to have sort of a layout. The format was local news in the middle and national news print news stories around the edge on the front page. And one of these was strange invasion queries in Humberside. And I thought, that's interesting. What's this about? Now, I knew that UFOs had been seen mystery airships in the early 1900s over England. And this was on about how, now wait for this one, 2 strangely black-clad men drove rapidly up to some workmen near Teesside somewhere, and jumped out of their black car and inquired if anyone had seen these airships over the river, and then inquired if there were any mines laid in the river, whereupon they were directed to inquire at the port office, where they jumped into this black car and drove rapidly away, quote unquote. Now, doesn't that sound a bit to you like Men in Black?
Yeah, it certainly does.
And I said to Nick, I said, this is a Men in Black. And it's 1909. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. I mean, I, like most people, thought, 40s, Men in Black, early 50s. This is 1909. It can't be. We wrote it up. Nick was very kind to include it in his book recently. And I've had a woman in white experience in my family, which was quite nasty. Just after I started writing, a very strange white-clad woman turned up with sunglasses, white mac, white trousers. She will witness this. She'll tell you herself in a minute. I was out. Sue went to the door, my young youngster in her arms. And the woman said, is your husband a man who's writing about UFOs in the newspaper? She said, yes. And, well, tell him to stop it or else. Sue shut the door in a bit of a panic because she had a youngster with her. Then she ran up to look at our balcony, which was a straight road where I used to live. Yeah. You could see about 300 yards before it. No sign of her. Disappeared, gone.
Wow.
And I took absolutely no notice whatsoever and carried on writing, and no one ever happened. But it's a bit scary to have it happen to your family.
Yeah, well, for someone to come knocking on your door, yeah.
Yeah, I wish I'd take a photograph and ask her for a quote. Oh, well, there you go. Anyway, I'm way overlapped. Sorry, mate.
No, you haven't. That's fine. I'll tell you what, though, Nigel, when you've got your book rewritten, you'll have to come on and tell us about it. It's Chasing the Shadows, A Life Spent Searching for the Paranormal by Nigel Wright. And hopefully, how long do you reckon before you get it out? Within a year?
Yeah, it's got to be before a year. It's got to probably be towards... Probably the middle of next year, I should think.
Yeah.
May, June time. Because I've got a load of photographs to dig out. It's going to be really just, like you say, somebody who was into it from a kid.
Yeah.
And it's like I was born to be with it, and it's something you can't ignore, I think. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? How it sort of takes... When I was a child and I was sky watching, that's all I used to do, just go and watch stars. I went to live in Franco, Spain. For a couple of years. And in Spain, when Franco was in rule, at night time it was deadly quiet. There was nothing going on. There was no nightclubs. I know that. But I had my telescope, so I used to go sky watching in the Spanish skies. And brilliant starlit skies, unlike anything you see in this country.
Yeah.
You see the Milky Way. Lovely one. Yeah, and so there you go.
Well, I'll tell you what, we can't let you go without telling us a little bit about your website and you're trying to set up this, what can we call it? New project?
I'm going to call it sort of like I don't know.
Symposium.
Yeah, it's a symposium, yeah, you could call it
a happening.
I haven't really thought, to be honest with you, what it is. It is going to be, hopefully, if we can get some parapsychologists interested, a combination of conventional science and paranormal investigators. I want to see if we can possibly find a common ground where we can work together. And I think we can. I think we can. If we all approach it with an open mind, I think we can. It's going to be fun.
Well, I mean,
it's going to be really fun.
The thing is, certainly, if there's anyone out there going to be listening to this show, if you'd like to get in touch, and perhaps we can put you in touch with Nigel, and we can... I've told you now before a bit about it. We did publicise that it was going to be on Cannock Chase. Yeah.
This thing was... We had to... At the time, I had to cancel it because Forestry Commission, God bless them, said, no, you can't have 16 people roaming across the forest in Cannock Chase because...
I think that's the problem with most forests, isn't it?
Yeah. So, today I've had some news. We might possibly be able to use some of the Staffordshire County Council ground quite near Cannock for a meeting. I don't know yet. I haven't contacted Tressa, my contact locally, to find out what it's all about. But there is a possibility that it could be on again quite by Cannock Chase, and it's a scene of UFO activity. So we could be on again. So you never know yet. I advise people to keep an eye on my Facebook.
Yeah.
Timeline to find out. I'll keep updated.
News on that.
Oh, right.
I've been talking to Tressa and
I haven't got my glasses.
She's just come on.
Oh, hang on a minute. I'll give you hot off the press.
Yeah, go in.
My contact is Tressa Yeoman. She runs Rudley Paranormal Society, Supernatural Society, RSS. She lives quite nearby. I've got a Cannock Chase on the best part. There's an old RAF base where UFOs have been spotted a few times and paranormal activity. We can use up to 4 fields, and we even recommend spots for us to use.
That sounds good.
And
I'm sure there will be plenty of people quite well known in the UK.
It looks like we're on for a very good base of operations near Cannock Chase on an old RAF base, sir.
I mean, I know there's several quite well-known UK UFO enthusiasts and writers interested in it, including myself. Not that I'm famous or anything, but the fact that I'd like to be there myself. You know, hopefully I will if I can make it.
Well, you know what my dear old John said to me when he was teaching me the ropes. He said, "Aim to be infamous, dear boy, not famous." Anyone can be infamous.
I think
if you can be infamous,
could be infamous.
You'll never be forgotten.
To be honest,
I sat one night in London, in BBC Centre, with Reg Presley one side of me, dear old Brian Blessed the other side of me, and John, and the three of us drank the BBC Green Room dry, and it was probably the loudest, most fascinating, absolutely incredible discussion of paranormal I've ever been involved in my life. God bless Brian Blessed, he's such a character.
He is a character. He's a very loud character. But,
yes.
So he's interested in the paranormal as well, is he?
Yeah, he loves Yetis in the Himalayas.
Is he?
Absolutely.
I think he is well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He is well known. Oh, Jeanette
Who?
Juliette, well, sorry.
Jeanette,
I'm sorry.
No,
I had a mind slip then. Sorry, Juliette. I was in another dimension.
David, yeah.
I think you've actually met Brian, haven't you?
Yes, I saw him last year at Lancaster.
Yeah.
He was big, booming, brilliant, and just incredibly funny. My jaw ached.
Oh.
And then you were telling me when you'd met him, and it was like, he was just...
Boy, how wonderful this marvellous Shakespearean voice booms out across it. The incredible chap.
I think the best that he just walked on stage and he just looked at everybody. He just went, Gordon's alive!
Funny enough, I remember him, he started off in Z-Cars, didn't he? As a UK TV show. I don't know if he did anything before that, but...
I tell you what, watch him on there's I don't know if it's a TV or a film production of Henry V with Kenneth Branagh.
Right.
And he plays one of the dukes, and he marches into the French court to deliver a message in full suit of armour. And what a character, what an entrance. He's got the sort of backcloth of smoke coming out behind him, billowing out, and this huge amount of physique, in full armour comes out to deliver a message to the French king. I'd have surrendered right away, quite honestly. I wouldn't have bothered fighting. It was quite, he's a lovely guy. I'm very fascinated to talk to you about the Himalayas. Fascinating, because as you said, the guy's been there, he's seen the footprint of the Yeti himself. He's actually tried to find the thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, you get him talking sometimes. But if you have Nick Redford on the show, please say hello for me. I'll listen in on that because he's not here, right?
Yeah,
no, he is.
I think it's November he's coming on, because originally, because he brought out recently a book about Rendlesham. He's brought out another one since, because he's so prolific in bringing out books all the time. But
40-odd books, I think.
I know. But originally, I asked him to come on about the Rendlesham book that he's just brought out. But of course, he's brought another one out since then, so we'll be doing a little bit of that as well. But I think it will probably.
My wife has kindly pointed out to me. It's 9:30, so I think I've run you over time. I'm
sorry
about
that's
that,
all right.
David.
I mean, I've got no time limits on this show anyway. Now it used to be booked for an hour, but I could do as long as I like now, so we're not a problem. But the thing is, we don't want to make them too long because people have got to listen to them as well. Not that you're boring or anyone's boring. It's just that
I probably do rattle on a bit. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna elbow a question in.
Go on in, Juliette.
Right, Nigel. As a historical or heritage photographer, and obviously I write, what's your advice to me?
About what in particular? About writing? Or?
Both.
In writing, I think you do this already, and that is inject a bit of humour into your work. Mm-hmm. I remember that a good piece, my advice for an article, if I dare say it, and I'm saying this is only my own personal opinion, should not be informative. It should be informative and entertaining. Mm. I mean, I've wrote a couple of little bits on the timeline. I recently cut off my beard and moustache. Yes. And I thought, well, rather than just put a photograph and saying, hey, I chopped off my moustache and beard today. I've had a night last night. I was abducted by a craft load of wandering nomad Barber Greys who, after tying me down and examining me with excited language, proceeded to give me the closest shave I've ever had in my life.
Planet
just see the craft flying off into space. It's just nonsense, but it makes it.
Made me laugh.
I'll tell you what I'll have to do, Nigel. I'll have to put up before and after pictures on the Paranormal Dimensions page, so everyone can see what we're talking about.
One of my friends who follows, God bless you, he said, I demand your money back because you've lost that wild professor look. I used to love that mad professor look. You look quite sane now. 15 years younger, but a lot saner.
I say, you've chopped yours off. I'm still growing mine. Well, no.
Well, mine will grow again before the end of the winter, don't worry.
So,
my granddaughter liked Father Christmas. I mustn't disappoint her. I've got to remember my back by Christmas. I just fancied a change.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
No, my advice is just basically
carry on like I'm doing.
Well, yeah, you're doing fine. I have taken notice of your career. Don't not worry. I'm on Facebook every day of the week because I'm a boring old devil who's got nothing else to do with his life nowadays. And I sort of interject when I can, or inject a bit of humour when I can. Yeah, my advice is just carry on what you're doing. You're doing fine. I do sympathise in the sense that you try to do convention photography, don't you? It's not been a good year, but never mind. You'll remember that. No. It will.
It's not been a good year for everybody, really, is it? Yeah.
I mean, the convention circuit is dead, basically, in the water this year. Next year it'll come back to flourish.
Let's hope so.
And indeed, let's hope so, because it's such a shame to see. The convention circuit took a big dive in the 90s. Ufology in Britain took a big dive in the 90s. I don't know if you remember, Dave.
Yeah.
When the magazines started dying out and the subjects started dying out.
And also they started to get quite expensive, didn't they? Yeah, you started paying like £5 for a magazine back then, and it was a lot of money.
nobody was taking much interest, and we were nothing was making the news. And I thought, well, this is it. Ufology's died a death. Yeah. And then in the 90s, it came back with a vengeance. That's right.
I mean, there's always been plenty of books coming out, isn't there? Like a steady stream of books all the time. But
yeah, I'm a bit scared about bringing mine out, because I'm thinking, well, people are going to take my look at this old ugly mug on the front page. That's why I don't put it on the page.
No, don't be daft.
As I walk in the reduction basket, I keep walking by Smiths and things. If I ever see any of my ones that made it as far as Waterstone's ever been in the reduction basket, I think they're probably popping up.
They're probably collector's items, I would have thought.
Well, they're fetching about 40 quid.
That's what I'm saying. There's quite a few books out there that are quite rare now, aren't they?
Yeah, some might say mine should have been rare a lot earlier, but there you are.
No, I wouldn't say that. I was thinking,
my wife.
I've got to say, I wish I had it on my shelf. What I'll do, I'll wait for the new version now of it. You know.
I would.
So you better get cracking on it. You better get cracking.
Oh, yes, sir. I shall reinstall my typewriter immediately. No. I typed my very first book on, as I say, an old Apple Macintosh desktop. One of the really early ones.
They were about 512 megabits or something, weren't they?
Oh, God, 216, that one was. I was absolutely crazy. It was green screen. It wasn't colour or anything like that. And, it was, separate keyboard, but I mean, so slow. Oh, it was,
yeah.
And to think I did a whole book on that was just crazy.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, well, I don't know how we survived without the computers that we've got now.
We did.
I remember John and I remember when the old ZX81 came out, you know.
Sue had that, didn't you? Sue was computerized long before myself.
Wow, you used to play those tennis games on it, you know, with the little ball going backwards and forwards.
Pong. Yeah. But I still do that with my modern one time I hit it with a hammer. But no, it's but John and I, my wife, God bless her, I say to her, she used to sit up with the baby, and I'd be at John's house, an extra 13 mile away to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning some mornings. Be up there, we'd be ploughing through all this stuff by hand, and John would be typing it up on his computer, which wasn't much better. He had a PC. When he used to do the typing, I used to do research. So I got bundles and bundles of research that I'd taken up through the day, and set up there endless copies, because I was driving endless copies to keep us awake, and cigarettes, which is plainly the reason why I got COPD now, because I smoked far too much and drank too much coffee, typical journalist.
Yeah.
But it came out, and it did quite well. It sold more abroad than it did in England, which is a bit interesting.
The amazing thing is, I'm glad you still kept all your stuff, because I mean, all the stuff that I had back in the 60s and 70s and stuff, when I used to keep it all, I don't know what I did with it. I lost it somewhere along the line, and it all went.
Unfortunately, Sue and I went through the horrific experience. We lost our home, back in the late 90s through the credit crunch, and we had an interest-only loan through a certain mortgage company, and it went from like $700 a month to $1,400 a month.
And
I was ill, and we just couldn't make ends meet. And like an awful lot of couples, we found ourselves on the street with 2 young kids, this very small car, packed up what we had left, which didn't include any of my books or any of my computers or my gear or anything. And so I lost about 400, 500 books.
Wow.
Lifetime collection.
Yeah.
All the magazines. I had all the UFO magazines ever published, basically, and that included all the sightings and all the ones in the 80s and 90s. So yeah, I know what it's like to lose your collection.
Well, you probably had it sounds like you had a much more collection than I had, you know, but
I'm a magpie.
But I did lose quite a lot. I think I must have lost it somewhere, because I'm on my 3rd marriage now, so I think I lost it on my first one somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it's happened.
And the last.
I'm on my 2nd, it'll be my 3rd soon, sister. That's going to be the world's first radio divorce settlement. There we go. But never mind. Thank you very much for having me on today.
It's been fantastic having you. And also, like you say, when that book comes out, you come back again, I hope. And
I will indeed. And like I say, the hopefully this meeting of mine, I have suddenly thought about it, We're going to call it the Meeting of Minds Convention.
Meeting of Minds, there you go. So you've come up with that's a good...
I've come up with it live on air. There you are, folks, yeah.
I think that's a very good title.
Meeting of Minds Convention. We've penciled it in for May next year. It'll be on the bank holiday May, which will be...
Check the website out.
Well, check out our website, yeah. The website is, my own personal website is www. I like that. Crazy Ufologist, it's all one word, .co.uk.
Right, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, if you send me that link, I'll put it on the page and make sure it all goes out, and we can repeat it again when it's...
Thank you very much.
But that's been excellent though, Nigel, and also Juliette, thanks for joining us, and for Sue, thank you for being in the background there, behind Nigel.
That's right, she can release the forearm lock now, thank you. Thanks ever so much. I'm sorry if we over.
No, it's fine. It's been a fun. Yeah. It's been a fun chat and interesting chat, and I found it interesting. I hope everyone else out there found it. I'm sure you did.
I hope
you had a couple of giggles along the line as well.
Yeah, I mean, any time. Maybe sometime. I like to definitely sort of chat over this idea of ley lines and areas of high strangeness, perhaps in the future a bit more with you, because I think that's an area we could explore a lot more in depth sometimes, perhaps. Yeah, well,
probably, if you can get your book out for next summer, we'll get you back on and we'll talk about all that sort of stuff. We might even have Juliette back on as well.
No!
You know, I'm feeling quite a heel now. I am so sorry. I apologise, lady.
I'm sat with Sue with this one. It's like you get two blokes like yourself together and there's just no bleeding chance whatsoever to get a word in edgeways unless you have a crowbar.
Go out for the night and leave them to it.
She's probably nodding here.
Well, maybe you should have bunged me a few more quid. I'll let you get a bit more in.
No.
Oh dear.
And no.
You're smiling quietly listening to the chaos I've caused. No. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah, strangeness.
I think I should perhaps at that point leave you two to sort out your armistice terms.
Thank you, Nigel.
Yeah. We always bicker.
Thank you, Nigel, and good night to you, and thanks for coming on, and you too, Sue. Take care of yourselves, and speak to you again soon.
I will think of you complete with wit when I am writing Furiously tomorrow, Dave.
Thank you.
I'll get further in chapter 1. Never know. Okay.
I look forward to the next time.
Take care,
Nigel.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Nigel. And thank you everyone out there for listening. This is the Paranormal UK Radio Network with Nigel Wright and myself, David Young, and I hope you enjoyed it on Paranormal Dimensions. Thank you and good night.
Paranormal Dimensions is as bright and powerful as our celestial star, the sun. And although it's expending thousands of pounds of energy every minute of the day, have no fear. There's plenty left.
Paranormal Dimensions is a regular feature on Mondays on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.